Hi hippies and seekers of truth and justice everywhere in the world. This is Glenn Simpson, citizen journalist in Leeds, the heart of England, reporting for Worldwide Hippies. Today I want to talk about protest and the effects of protest, and in particular two causes I find very interesting. Now the first one being a tragic event that happened in England at a football game, a soccer game on the 15th of April in 1989. It's a big match, semi-final of the FA Cup, which is probably equivalent in the States of the Super Bowl, and the two teams involved were Liverpool and Nottingham Forest, and they were playing at an intermediate ground, a place called Hillsborough in Sheffield, England. Now the match was obviously very well attended, and as always happens with these events, lots of people turn up without tickets hoping that maybe you can buy a ticket on the day, or somebody will turn up with a spare ticket. Now as the game's kicking off, there were lots of Liverpool fans outside a gate that led into the stand, into the terrace where the Liverpool fans were housed. For some reason, the police in charge that day, would be South Yorkshire Police, decided to open the gates. Now as the surge of people came through the gates and up into the back of the stand, they caused a tremendous crush. Of course, all the people at the front were pushed forward and crushed. The result being that were 96 Liverpool fans dead, and 766 other Liverpool fans were injured. Now then, that was compounded because on that day the BBC were at the game, and they had intended to record a match and then show it later in the evening. But what they did as the events unfolded is they patched through to a live stream into the main BBC Saturday sports programme, and of course everybody saw exactly what was happening. In fact, it was seen all over the world. I was in Portugal that day and I watched it live on television. Now then, 96 dead, 766 people injured. There was obviously a massive furore after the event, and people were pointing the finger at South Yorkshire Police. And we now learn that Lady Thatcher, Mrs Thatcher, the Prime Minister of Britain at the time, was instrumental in giving to the media, the press, a release stating that the problems at Hillsborough and the reason that the crush happened was because of the drunken and aggressive behaviour of Liverpool fans. Well, not so, and all the families, and indeed I think everybody, felt that this is just not a good enough excuse, and the families of the 96 have fought every year for the last 23 years, day in, day out, to find out the truth about what happened that day at Hillsborough. And it's only in the last 2 or 3 months that they're starting to see light at the end of their tunnel, and the government have agreed to discuss in Parliament what happened, and they are releasing lots of documents and papers that had been withheld. So say a little bit light at the end of the tunnel, and that's taken them 23 years. Now another event that took place in America was in Ohio at Kent State University on the 4th of May 1970, 42 years ago almost. Now at that time in the States, Richard Nixon, tricky dicky for it is he, was in power, and of course America was heavily involved in Vietnam, and there were protests all over the country. Now Nixon renegade on his election promise to pull the troops out of Vietnam, and in April 1970, he declared that American DIs would invade Cambodia. Now of course this caused lots of protests and lots of demonstrations all over the country, and one particular we're talking about is at Kent State in Ohio, the university. There had been 3 or 4 days of protest leading up to the 4th of May. This time, at which point there'd been quite a lot of altercation on the campus in the days previous between the police and the students and demonstrators, and the governor of the state declared a state of emergency and put curfews on. Now on the morning of the 4th of May, around about 2,000 students gathered, and they were standing off against the police, who were asking them to disperse. The police threw tear gas at the students threw the tear gas canisters back, rocks were hurled at the police. not a nice situation, but not really that serious. Now then, after a lot of concentration, and the police had trying to move the groups of students around the ground, and lots of to and throwing, the state governor had moved in 77 guardsmen, National Guardsmen, all armed with M1 rifles with bayonets fixed. And about 12:30, just after lunch on the 4th of May, 29 of the 77 guardsmen opened fire on a group of students, the result being the death of 4 of them. They were the young man called Jeffrey Miller, 20 years old, Sandra Shewer, a 21-year-old girl, William Schroeder, he was 20 years old, and a 19-year-old girl called Alison Krauss. Now then, the families, very similar to the Hillsborough situation, the families fought desperately to find the truth, and met again with the wall of silence, documents that they couldn't access. Now I've come to know Alison Krauss's sister Laurel, and every day the lady fights to find out the truth about what happened to her sister. You can't bring anybody back, it doesn't matter what's done now, but just like the Hillsborough families, you can bring things to a closure. And I urge you to check out Laurel Krauss on Facebook, and please give her some moral support. She's an inspiration to me, and I think and I hope that she finds some inspiration in the fact that after 23 years the families of the victims at Hillsborough are finally seeing some kind of justice done. You have to howl, and you have to howl and keep on howling. If you don't agree with it, howl, and if you want to howl, this is the platform to do it. Join us on Worldwide Hippies. You can write, or you can piece the camera like this and get your view across. This is Glenn Simpson for Worldwide Hippies, Leeds, England, saying peace out.